Welcome to Marvel Mayhem, the series where I rate and review every single Marvel television series and movie. Today we're talking about 2004's The Punisher, and I don't remember who it stars, but one of the big stars is John Travolta. And this, I think, was one of his last sort of films from his big comeback tour like 10 years before with Pulp Fiction. And he does an amazing job with it. And I'm just going to tell you up front that I don't think that this is the best Punisher film. It has its moments, but I think the previous version from 1998, I think, starring Dolph Lundgren, actually is much better, even though that's a wild ride. But the problem with this film is that it's really long and it makes some strange choices in terms of how it tells the story. So, first, it spends about 30 minutes setting up the events that will lead to the Punisher's rampage later. It shows everything. So there's a sting operation. Frank Castle is working as an undercover agent, and he's pretending to be this German guy. There's a gun deal, and as a part of this gun deal, they're trying to arrest these gun runners. And the son of a big gangster, I forgot what his name is, but the big gangster is played by John Travolta, and he dies. And because the son dies, Travolta wants to find this German guy. So they find out that the German guy is not really a German guy. He's this undercover officer named Frank Castle. So they find out that Frank Castle's having this family reunion in Puerto Rico. And I don't know why they made him be from Puerto Rico because he doesn't have a Spanish accent. None of the family in Puerto Rico speaks Spanish. It's really, really weird, although I guess you can be English from Puerto Rico. And he has like some moments with his son and his wife, and the son goes and they're fishing and swimming, and you're like, oh, that's nice, lovely domestic scene. I guess what they're trying to do is to show the emotional impact of the character losing his family, but I don't think it works in the Punisher world. I'm going to talk about in a moment why it doesn't work, but let's back to the plot. So Travolta's character finds out that Frank Castle's having this reunion with his family on Puerto Rico. He sends some gunmen to go and kill, well, actually his wife Livia, I think that's the name of the gangster's wife, says that all of Frank Castle's family should be killed. And when she said that, she wasn't very specific. If I heard that, I would think like wife, kid, Frank, that's it. But no, 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 no. The gunmen go to Puerto Rico and they massacre everyone at this family reunion. Wife, son, father, mother, third cousin that nobody likes. And it doesn't make a lot of sense as to why they would do that. Their tactics are really shabby because they just walk up and start shooting. And theoretically, most people could have tried to escape the situation by running inland, running in the opposite direction or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's a big, huge sequence, and it's supposed to be this thing that triggers the events of the rest of the movie, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because the wife and kid, of course, they run towards the gunfire, which is really dumb, and they hide near the gunfire, and they get caught and shot, of course. And this is supposed to trigger Frank's rage, right? But this is such a huge event. The fact that all of his family have been massacred and he runs away. And part of his later motivation in the movie is he says, "Oh, the police didn't do anything. The police didn't do anything." But Frank in the movie pretends to be dead, and then he comes back when the investigation stalls. Like, why though? He's a member of law enforcement. Why not go to them? There's nothing in the movie that says that the law enforcement did a bad job in this investigation. Why not go to them and say, These guys tried to kill me. It's connected to my job. What kind of connections do I have with somebody with this kind of power? And then eventually, it would lead to John Travolta's character. But he doesn't do that. And so he says that the police didn't do a good job of investigating, even though he didn't really help them. So that's weird and strange and not normal at all. But anyway, uh, so we get to after this whole part, this 30-45 minute section, um, completely unnecessary because here's where the real movie starts. So Frank, he finds this little sort of dive place to live in, and this part of the movie actually has a bit of charm because he moves in and he starts to become sort of a protector for the people who live in this rundown place. But they also give him a sort of love interest, which is really weird because I mean, nothing happens between them in the film, but his real love interest died just 2 minutes ago in film time. And they introduce a new love interest, and you're like, why? Why? It doesn't make any sense. So, anyway, there's a bunch of plot where Frank is trying to destroy John Travolta's business by doing various things, destroying shipments and money, and kind of working his way to the top of this criminal enterprise. But like again, if he knows who's responsible, murdered his family, why not say it to the police in the beginning? Again, really weird. But anyway, he's moving through this revenge kind of situation, and I think that there's two parts that are actually kind of enjoyable in the movie. There's one part where he's fighting this guy called the Russian who's wearing this kind of ridiculous outfit. Like it's this big fight, and it's really difficult for Frank to survive, but he does survive eventually. And then later, there's a chilling part after that where the gangster, I've forgotten what the gangster's name is, but the gangster's goons come to torture one of his neighbors into telling him uh, where Frank Castle is. Anyway, they try to torture the neighbor into revealing Castle's location, and he doesn't do it. And Frank is like, "Why would you do that for me? I'm not your friend. You don't know me at all, and you don't owe me anything." And he's like, "No, no, no, you're from my family." So that's kind of a nice moment in the movie. And it's kind of the whole theme of the movie is that you find family even though you lose them. But the movie doesn't really pay off. So the other bit is the ending sequence where Frank he has this plan. He's going to the headquarters to have a confrontation with the mob boss, so he goes to different places and he's able to kind of come up with some complicated thing. He fights his way to the top. He murders the guy's son. The other thing he does is he turns the gangster against his best friend because he makes this plot where the gangster believes his best friend is sleeping with his wife, and the gangster's very jealous. So that part is great. He murders the best friend, and they have this kind of almost romantic moment where the best friend is hugging him and he's like, "Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me." It's really well acted actually because there's this kind of like sexual tension almost there. It's out of place for the entire movie. It's a really good scene between whoever played that character and John Travolta. So anyway, the guy dies. The gangster confronts his wife and says, "Oh, you're having an affair." And she's like, "Dude, the guy was gay." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. He wasn't gay. Wasn't gay. You're lying. You're lying. You're lying." So he hits his wife and then he takes her to the bad part of town, and he makes like he's gonna leave her there, but he actually throws her over this overpass onto the train track, and as she's falling, she screams in this really over the top way, like ah! I mean, I can't do it, and um, she lands on the tracks, and the train's coming, and then she screams in an even more ridiculous way. Like, it's really funny, like completely out of place in the movie, uh, because I guess they're trying to go for a very serious tone, and it wasn't meant to be funny at all, but it's funny, uh, especially after this really powerful moment. Um, in the film. So I think the death of the gangster's friend is the best part of the movie, and the fight with the Russian is also a good part of the movie. So it's worth watching, but the death scene of the gangster is also really fun because before that, um, the son, before he dies, asks his dad, "Oh, where's mom?" And the gangster is like, "Oh, she had to catch a train." So kind of funny. And then when Frank is about to kill the gangster, and he's like, "Oh, you killed my son," the gangster says, as an explanation to why he did all of this, and Frank's like, "Oh yeah, but I killed your other son." Then there's an explosion because he's triggered some kind of grenade that um, the other son was holding on, and he couldn't hold on for much longer, and then it blows up off screen, and he's like, "Yeah, I killed your other son just now. I made you think your best friend was sleeping with your wife, and you killed him, and then you killed your wife, and now I'm going to kill you." So then he ties the guy to a car. The car blows up, and then there's like this really corny, like Punisher logo that's made from the exploding cars. So that's what happens in the movie. But is the movie actually good? I would say no. It's not good because I think the main reason, even though it has these really good moments, um, it takes so much time to set up the fact that Frank wants revenge. And I think what it's trying to do, it's trying to say, like, what Frank does is justified because he suffered so much. Like, even cousins he didn't like were murdered. So he's gonna get revenge, and that's okay. But I think the problem with that is that the first movie handles the Punisher character quite well because there is this question. He's just murdering everybody, and the question is, are you a really are you really a good guy if you're murdering so many people? And his best friend, who's not corrupt in the first version of the movie, says that what's the difference between what you're doing and what they did? And he doesn't really have a good answer for that because the Punisher character doesn't really have a good answer for that question. And in this movie, it tries to make him kind of justified, even though he doesn't do what a police officer would do in that situation. So there's no actual justification for this. And he's not disappointed or anything. He says it's not punishment, it's justice or whatever. But he didn't go through the justice system, and the justice system didn't fail him. So there's no motivation for the whole thing. So I think if you start a Punisher story just in the fact that he's already screwed up in his head and he's got all of these problems, if you start it there, then I think it works better. And to be honest, I don't know anything about the MCU version of the Punisher. I don't know if they started it like that or they do a whole backstory thing. I don't know at all. I have to kind of catch up on that. But for me, so far, and there is another different version of the Punisher before the MCU version, but for me, the best version of the Punisher so far is the one I think from the first Punisher movie and not this one. Uh, it's hard to say what I would rate this movie because there are parts about it that are quite enjoyable. And as I said, John Travolta's acting and character is just so great. It kind of reminds me of Nick Nolte's approach to acting, which is just awesome. You don't really see that much nowadays, and it's great. It's really, really great. So for that, I would give The Punisher a 5 out of 10. If you like what I do, if you want to help me on my quest to becoming the most prolific reviewer of all time, you can subscribe to the channel, you can like the video, you can leave a comment. All of those things help. I don't need you to do that for me, but if you do that for me, it'll be really great. All right, thanks and bye.